Yeah. All right. Yeah, I usually drink my coffee before and then. All right, good morning. Everyone enjoy all of our rain that we got? I didn't get the snow I was hoping for. We got like a little bit of hail for a minute. Like there was, I don't know, maybe 5 pieces of hail on a piece of furniture in our backyard. I was like, I guess that's what I'm gonna be excited about. But it rained a bunch, which was fun. And I saw everybody else's snow, like a bunch of people got snow. It just did it? Yeah. Yeah, my in-laws live over in Moore Park off of LA and they had like a good amount of hail. It was like almost snow. And we had a little bit of hail for like 5 minutes and then I was so disappointed. I was waiting for snow. It still says 30% chance of frozen mix tomorrow night, but I'm not gonna hope anymore, but that's okay. And then apparently like 50 inches of snow up in like Big Bear and all those places. You can't even get there. All the roads are closed. Really? Oh, everybody's stuck for now. We yesterday were like, let's go to the snow. Oh, we can't get there. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's wild. There's a lot of snow up in the mountains. So I want to remind you of 2 things. I put them up on the board for you here. If you wanted to do it, the extra credit, that self-care extra credit that we talked about is due by tonight at 11:59 p.m. on campus. A few of you did it already, which was fun. If you still want to, it is up there and still available for you. And then Wednesday is actually a campus-wide flex day. So there are no classes for all of you. I have class all day. I have to sit and listen to like a presentation on distance education, something or other for like 6 hours. And they don't even give us lunch because it's like virtual. Like, come on. The best part about PD is they give us a lunch and cookies. But I have class all day, but we don't. So all of you won't have class. It should be a campus-wide thing. So it should be all of your classes. I'd like to ask you to watch something on Canvas sometime this week. It doesn't matter when, and you don't have to do anything with it. But our library recorded a video with me, or for me, I should say. I'm not in it. But if you are on Canvas and scroll down a little bit, it's down here under virtual guest speakers and lectures. There's this video right here by the library. And what they did is they went through, and I have 2 different videos that are on here. The first one is a presentation by our librarian, Danielle Caprellian, who's really sweet, really wonderful person, made a video showing you how to access different resources online. Our second part of our paper is due in a couple of weeks. It's coming up in a few weeks. And so what you can find on here is she'll show you how to access the library database, how to find a good source for that paper. And then underneath it, there is a video about APA formatting. Don't worry about that one for now, but I would love for you to watch the library resource one if you can. And she made a little because they changed a couple of things. So if you can watch this at some point soon, that would be great. Because what I want to do on Monday is I want to talk a little bit about the second part of the paper. And so it would be really helpful if you watch that, just so you know where all of the resources are. We'll talk a little bit about what you need to do for that second part. So sometime this week, you don't need to turn anything in, just watch it. It's about 20 something minutes long. And it's right here on Canvas. Okay. And I'll remind you about it, but if you can watch it, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, I won't see you Wednesday, but I will see you obviously today and then on Monday. So I gave you a homework assignment and I hope you spent a little bit of time working on that. What I want to do is give you just a couple of minutes to get into groups and go over your answers so you can share with each other what you came up with. If you have time, you could always read each other's scenarios. It's late because of this. Oh my goodness. Well, you can be late then if you're going to bring me donuts. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to go over it together. If you have time, share your responses to that last question, and then we'll go over it together. So just a few minutes, find a few people around you. You go ahead and see what you came up with. Thank you.
Conversions because like I want to think that we found when it says making right the first downtown. And then I think you're going to Brian of office location and and then doctors figured out right in the language or
I didn't bring any extras, but you could see someone else that you was on with them.
The next one I did last was show. But I actually think it Munchkinson. Arizona. I was a lot. Okay, guys. No. No, it's Munchkinson. Munchkinson's they talked about because the mom was at right? Okay. Was part think she can speak it out. I agree with her. I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah.
My car is anyways. Because apparently I was saying because like I think that we don't have to do it. It yeah, but engine like so hard, so how do you take time? That's what I partly. I have one chance next week. Yeah.
Let's talk about them together really quickly. I'll like this from you, and I look forward to reading your scenarios that you came up with. So again, all of these are real stories. These are news stories that I put them down just to make them not quite so long. But anyone want to tell me what you thought for Brian? What do you think for number one for Brian? Yeah.
I thought it was conversion disorder.
Okay, and one.
At the end, when it says that making things even worse, the accident left Brian with a loss of sensation in his right leg, making it impossible for him to walk.
Yeah.
And for conversion disorder, it's like when you lose the senses.
Mhm.
I think so.
Yeah.
And it was like that's really rare for like a boating accident when you're like not even injured.
Yeah.
For something like that to happen.
Yeah, and the fact that nothing was physically wrong, right? Yeah. But he had, a traumatic event happen. He loses sensation. Very, very, very much conversion disorder, right? He converted something psychological and traumatic into a physical symptom, right? So the name kind of helps you there, right? You're converting something emotional into a physical symptom to help you cope with it. So conversion disorder, I think fits Brian the best. How about Blanca? Yeah, and then I'll go to you for the next one. Yeah. Okay. Mhm. Yeah, right. So factitious disorder or Munchausen by proxy, and they're the same thing in essence, right? So that's perfect. But yeah, the fact that it's getting worse when is it the mother is there, right? Obviously making them sick on purpose. We talked a little bit about how that can happen. So great, I would say fictitious or Munchausen by proxy. Again, either one, they're the same. How about Tom? Do you want to go with do Tom? Yeah.
Somatization pattern mixed with predominant pain pattern.
Okay, and why? Why did you think that? Okay, all right.
Somatization pattern is marked by numerous recurring physical ailments without an organic cause, while predominant pain disorder is marked by pain with psychosocial factors playing a central role in the onset, severity, or continuation of the pain.
Okay, and I think there's one that fits better, but I understand where you're going with it, right? And so with somatic symptom disorder, you would pick one pattern, but he doesn't have everything for somatization patterns. So remember, with that one, you have to have a sexual symptom, a neurological symptom, a gastrointestinal symptom. You have to have all of those, and I don't think that quite fits him. Does anyone have a different thought? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that one fits better. And I see where you're going with that, and you're on the right track, I think, in your thinking. But illness anxiety, I think, fits better. He's definitely preoccupied, going from doctor to doctor. It gets complicated by the fact that, there was something with his dad, right? And so I think that only fuels that fire. But I would say illness anxiety fits him the best. How about with our last one? I was going to say with Kim, Leslie, not Kim. Could be Kim. It's practically the same. I mean, like they might be best friends. I don't know. Any thoughts on number 4? Anyone want to do that? Yeah. Sure.
Because she knew what she was doing, but she continued to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So as far as faking with him or like finding pictures online or like betting into a big view.
Yeah.
So she knew what she was doing, but she continued to do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like she said, from this season, between my friend and family, like she said that there were family issues or that's something like that. So she ended up like creating this whole thing.
Yeah, and I think so. If you put Munchausen or factitious, again, they're the same thing, just different names for the same thing. The technical name is factitious, the common name Munchausen. So either one of those would work. And again, these are wild. There's so many examples. I had to really kind of narrow it down, but there are a lot of cases of these disorders. We'll talk about this one just a tiny bit more because we didn't really get to it. But I hope that this was kind of a nice way to review. And again, I look forward to reading your scenarios that you came up with. If you want to go ahead and pass those forward, make sure your name is on there, obviously. Okay.
I did like things right.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Do I have everyone?
No.
No.
That's right. I think that's the thing, correct.
All right. So I want to talk about this one just for a little bit, and then we will keep going. This is the last big disorder in this chapter, right? So we talked about factitious disorder and Munchausen's. We talked about the ones that were in the case study. Illness anxiety, and we mentioned it, but I just want to say a little bit more. This used to be called being a hypochondriac, right? Or hypochondriasis. The common name for this is a hypochondriac, right? And the typical thing that you're seeing here is people are taking small things in their health and they're blowing them out of proportion, right? And I think I gave you the example last time of you have a headache and you assume it's a tumor, or you have a stomach ache, it must be some kind of cancer. Every little thing has to be something massive and major, kind of catastrophizing every little thing in your body. And what happens is people become really preoccupied with their health. They spend a lot of time doing things related to their health, whether that's going to the doctor or maybe Google searching things related to their health, which is always an awful idea, right? Whenever you have a medical thing going on and you Google search it, it's like something mild or cancer every time, right? It's like 50-50. Doing WebMD searches and things like that are typically very mixed results. And so what you often see here is a lot of anxiety about health. right? This person is constantly anxious. They go from doctor to doctor to doctor, really kind of trying to confirm the worst case scenario. Right. So if they believe that they have a tumor, they're going to go from doctor to doctor to doctor and get all those tests done repeatedly to try and prove that. And this tends to get worse for people the older that they get. Right. The older we get, the more common we tend to kind of freak out a little bit about our health. And maybe some of that is because, you know, as we get older, we do tend to have more medical issues. But you see a lot of this in older populations, right? My grandma, toward the end of her life, I swear she lived at the doctor's office. It was just like she just went constantly, every little thing. She's like, this is it. This is going to be it. This is going to be it. She said that for like 15 years, right? And so there's a lot of worrying and anxiety and fearing the worst, kind of blowing things out of proportion. Yeah.
Freaks out every time she goes
Yeah.
to the hospital, like, is my blood pressure okay? I can't have any salt. I'm gonna die.
Mhm. Yeah, right. And you have a little bit of a chest pain, I'm having a heart attack.
Yeah.
Or it could be, you know, like it could be a muscle thing, or it could be a heart attack. That's the tricky thing. Okay, right. So just kind of blowing everything out of proportion.
Way.
Yeah, and that happens with this for sure. Yeah. How do you mean? I'm not quite sure how you.
You know, the abdominal reasons is like hypochondriac, right?
Oh, I don't think, I wonder, I'm not sure why the names would be the same, but I don't think there's a correlation there. I'm not sure. You should look it up and see if you can
Yeah.
find anything out about it. Any other thoughts or comments? Anything else here? Yeah.
Whenever he would get like a pain anywhere,
Yeah.
he would just pop an ad. And so when he went like it, I was funny, and so you know, call it kind of
Uh-huh.
and but yeah, like for any sort of pain, it goes at them.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and it can be like that over medicating for things as well, right? Again, fearing the worst. I always think of, I don't know if any of you have seen Doc McStuffins, right? Like, I don't know, like I don't, thankfully my kids have like slightly outgrown Disney Junior. Just sometimes I miss it. But Disney Junior, Doc McStuffins, there's a character named Chili. He's a little snowman. And I was trying to find a clip of him. He's such a hypochondriac, right? He's like this fake little snowman, and every little thing he's like, oh my God, I gotta go to the doctor, right? Like for everything. I was trying to find a clip of him, but he's always blowing everything out of proportion. It's very common to see with this disorder. Yeah.
Oh, at my work, I've got like an after school club for kids and stuff. And there's this one girl where like every day she has like a new injury or like a new illness.
Yeah.
And so she always wants to call like her parents and stuff. And my old boss, luckily she's not there anymore, but she like didn't let her call her parents one day, and she was like actually sick.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad because like she's usually not sick at all, but the one day like they didn't let her, she like threw up and everything. It was
Oh.
so bad.
Right. Well, that's the hard thing though, is if you're always blowing everything out of proportion, always overreacting, people stop taking you seriously. My daughter, my youngest, is such a hypochondriac. Every little thing, she's like, I'm sick. I'm so sick. I'm really sick. I need a Tums. She needs a Tums for everything, right? I need a Tums. I'm like, you just ate too much. Just give it a minute. No, I need Tums, right? Like constantly. And her arm was hurting. And so we took her to the doctor and they gave her a little like soft cast. And she was all like, see, I broke it. I'm like, no. They're just giving it to you to make you feel better. And we totally told the doctor too. We're like, she's yeah, like don't give it to her. He's like, well, I'll have her wear it for 2 days. And it was like the longest 2 days of like, I hurt me so I can't do the dishes today. I'm like, nice try. Yeah.
Before fourth grade,
Yeah. Sure.
but I was just amazing.
Okay.
Probably once a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just sitting there with her.
Yeah.
Because I wanted attention.
Sure.
But what is that?
Yeah, and that could be a little bit of this, right? And so oftentimes what you see with this, or even it could be a little bit of a factitious disorder, like on a lesser level, it's really common in kids.
I think everyone's.
Yes.
Like,
I see all of a sudden, right? Uh-huh. We'll check you again.
Somewhere literally through our jobs.
I'm like, wait, what? Okay. And that's so common with kids. Like my daughter Emma, at least once a month goes to the nurse's office. And it's just for attention. It's like you go and get to get out of class. And they oftentimes call us and they're like, Emma's here again. And I don't even pick up anymore. It's not very nice. But I'm like, okay, because I can't reward it. If I reward it, she'll keep doing it. And that was our mistake. She was in first grade and she went to the nurse's office. And I went and got her, right? Like she was like, I have a stomach ache, I don't feel well. So I went and got her. She spent the day at home, just like biggest grin ever. So excited. And ever since then, it's like she goes to the nurse's office thinking she's going to get to go home. And so you have to be careful because it's rewarding, right? Like you get attention, you get sympathy. Sometimes you get to go home, you get out of class. And so people end up getting in this pattern. It's very much along these lines, right? And it might not be that you're necessarily faking it as much as you just enjoy the attention or the escape from whatever else. So I have to work very hard to not reward that behavior because she still does it. And sometimes she'll be like, the therapist, they have a school therapist and they'll come into their classroom and be like, does anyone need to talk? She'll be like, I want to talk, right? I think we've normed therapy too much in our house. So she'll always, now she does it with the therapist and we get phone calls from the therapist of like, Emma's in here again. Gone from physical to, emotion. There was a hand somewhere, yeah.
Like 6 and 7 years old.
Yeah.
I like would go to the nurse office so often because I was such a case and the nurse was like, oh, well, like you're fine, just go back to class. And then I ended up going to the doctor because I was throwing up for like 6 months, like right after that, and like, oh yeah, no, you actually have like ulcers and a bunch of other stomach issues. You need to get this taken care of. And the nurse called my mom like while we were at the doctor's and she's like, I'm so sorry. The amount of times I've sent your daughter back to class around this stomach pain, like I really just thought she was like,
Yeah. And that's kind of the other side of the coin, right? Is sometimes it is a real thing. And it's can be hard to know. And it's very common, especially with kids. They go to the doctor, they go to the nurse's office or whatever it might be. And sometimes it actually is something that you need to look into. And it's so easy to dismiss it because it's just such a common thing. Yeah.
Why didn't you call me? This could have been something like way more serious.
Yeah, and normally they do call. I get a call every time, like, and sometimes multiple times a day. Yeah, so it's hard on both sides, right? You have to take things seriously, but you don't want to worry about them and take them so seriously and then just become obsessed with your health, right? It's kind of a fine line of checking and going to the doctor, but not going to 10 different doctors and fearing the worst every single time. It can be hard to find that balance. Yeah.
So I think she has like something new every time.
Mm-hmm.
6.
Right.
No.
Well, and the amount of cases of this over the last few years have been through the roof, right? I mean, with all the health concerns that we have, and then we have variant after variant after variant, the second that like you can't smell for a second, it's like, oh, it must be COVID, right? Or, the second you have a fever or a cough, right? There's a lot of this. It's become very prevalent over the last few years as people are very worried about their health constantly. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
the rest of the family do what she does. Anytime family dinner, I may have it because I have sauce.
Sure. Mhm.
She doesn't eat red meat, or I don't anymore, but I used to.
Mhm.
And she goes, you can't eat that. Why not? I eat protein.
Sure.
She goes, but there's too much salt and there's too much red meat. You're not eating.
Mhm.
And she would take the plate away from me physically.
Mhm.
And my mom and I are just looking at her. Like,
You're like, I don't have high blood pressure, back off, right? Yeah. Oh man, that's lovely, right? Yeah. And I mean, it's tough. Family can be that way for sure, right? I grew up in a household that's like obsessed with desserts. Like we had dessert all the time, which is why I'm such a big dessert lover. My partner's family, like they never had dessert because a lot of them have diabetes. And so they would never have anything like sweet in their house. My partner didn't have a Twinkie until she was like 19. She didn't know what a Twinkie was. So it was like, oh, you poor thing. You grew up in such hard conditions, right? And so every family's so different and sometimes kind of forcing your health stuff onto the other people around you a little bit. Mm-hmm. So some causes and treatments, a lot of these are stress related, stress and trauma, right? Which is why we're covering this after the last chapter that we went over. So a lot of them related to stressful events, traumatic events that you couldn't deal with. Anxiety tends to trigger a lot of things related to our health, right? And so there's a lot of stress, anxiety, and trauma related stuff. And then behavioral and cognitive elements, right? So if you're rewarded for going to the nurse's office, right? Or you're rewarded for being sick. Then you get rewarded and reinforced, and it builds this cycle. And so what you often see is that there's like a behavioral or cognitive element to them where people learn that this is the only way I can get attention. Like Kim, at some point during her childhood, must have learned that this was the only way for her to get the attention that she wanted. And she didn't learn a healthy way of doing it, right? And so oftentimes there's like a behavioral piece. And the tricky thing with treatment is that people don't typically go to therapy for these things. They go to a doctor, right? If you woke up blind or lost a sensation in your body somewhere, you would go to a doctor, right? If you feared that you were sick, you'd go to a doctor, right? So oftentimes what you see is that people don't go to therapy for this until kind of a last resort. And it might be that a physician finally says, hey, maybe you should consider therapy, or going to like a psychologist or psychiatrist to explore other options. And so people seek multiple opinions. They go from professional to professional. And sometimes we use some medications and things like that if it's applicable. Maybe the root of the disorder is in depression or in something else, in which case a medication might be a little bit helpful for that, but it doesn't necessarily help with the disorders that we're actually talking about. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Not to call people up into sort of narcissist, but in a way, narcissism is like really hard to get.
Yeah.
So that can be.
It can be fixed. The hard thing is for some people, it's like a lifelong pattern and they become invested in their own lies. What happens is people start lying and then they believe the lies and they can become so immersed and entrenched in them that they can't see past them. And so it can take a long time to learn better ways. I would definitely say it is reversible, but with a lot of effort. And that person has to want to reverse it and be willing to go healthy routes to get attention, which might be harder to do. So it's fixable, but with a lot of work, especially for someone who's like really severe, like Kim. I would love to think that she, sorry, I keep going back to her. I would love to think that she could fix it. But at this point, like in her 50s, been doing this her whole life, I doubt it. And she doesn't want to, like she believes the lies so much. You won't believe this, but I think I'm going to see her in April. I can't even believe it. So my partner's grandparents passed last year and they're having a funeral. It's a ceremony. They're having a ceremony for them, a funeral for them at the end of April. And she just posted on Facebook that she's going. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to see Kim. After like 20 years, I'm going to see Kim. I know, I'll have to take a picture, like a very sly picture, be like, this is her. Wild. What was that? I know, right? If she's there, I'll take a picture. I'll record her and like get a little conversation. Oh, it'll be so dramatic. What was that? I know. How were the babies? Yeah, those babies, were they ever born? No. Yeah, we'll see. That'll be interesting, disturbing and interesting. I know, right? She just makes great like content for me. I love it, right? So one other kind of group of disorders in here, these are really common and not always like super severe, but they're very, very common things. Psychophysiological disorders. And again, the names are confusing. So we have psychosomatic or psychophysiological. These are things that result from an interaction of something psychological and physical. And I guarantee there are a lot of you who struggle with at least one of the things up here on this slide. So things like ulcers, very, very stress driven, right? People can break out in hives or break out in ulcers, right, as a result of stress. Asthma can be made worse by stress, right, quite a bit so. Insomnia, right? This is the one I put my money on. A lot of you probably struggling with difficulty sleeping or staying asleep. I haven't slept right since COVID hit, I don't think, right? I don't sleep that well anymore. I have little ones, which I don't think helps. But a lot of people have poor sleep habits and it makes it hard for them to sleep at night. Muscle contraction headaches and migraine headaches, TMJ related issues like things with your jaw. I tend to clench my jaw and grind my teeth at night and I don't even realize I'm doing it, but then it gives me headaches all day. Like I get headaches through my face and through my neck because everything's muscular like and connected, right? And so oftentimes things like muscle headaches and migraine headaches and TMJ related things are the results of stress. Did you have a? Yeah. For sure. I don't grind my teeth bad enough that I need one, but it might not be the worst thing in the world, right? But yeah, a lot of people do that. They grind their teeth or they clench and they don't even realize that they're doing it. Yeah. Yeah, and oftentimes bad sleep habits and a bad schedule are the cause of insomnia, if that makes sense. So the number one reason that people have insomnia is poor sleep hygiene. So they do too much in bed, they drink or consume things just before bed. Like if you're eating candy or drinking coffee or like sugary things before bed, it's going to be harder to sleep. Stress is the number one, like another reason that people have a hard time sleeping. Maybe you're watching TV in bed. There's too much stimulation in bed in some way, which could be a lot of different ways, right? But there's too much going on. It makes it hard for you to sleep. So that's the number one reason why people have poor sleep habits causes insomnia. Yeah.
So I've had a struggle with sleeping and I'm trying to fix my sleeping schedule.
Sure.
But I got like this blue light, like, yeah, no. Well, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
And so like, I just want to know, I mean, maybe I'm not, but I just want to know the science behind that. Like, what does that
Yeah.
help you sleep?
So some of it is sleep and some of it is just the amount of like that light that's hitting your eyes, right? It's thought to maybe have a negative impact. There's a lot of screen, like the amount of screen time that people do is a lot compared to what it used to be. And so those like the glasses or the screen protectors that minimize that blue light are thought to minimize some of the impact of like some of that screen time, because it can actually affect your brain, especially when you're younger. Too much screen time can cause issues in your cognitive development. And it can also cause issues with sleep. I'm not sure we know 100% why, but we have noticed that reducing that blue light from it does tend to correlate to improved sleep a little bit. Yeah. Right, in some of your receptors for sleep, there's a part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which regulates our light and dark cycles, and it's related to sleep. And it's thought that it might impact that in some way. What happens is it takes signals from the retina, like from your rods and cones. And so something about that lighting tends to disrupt that part of your brain and your sleep signals. So I think that's kind of the extent of what we know, but it does help a little bit, at least for some. Did you have your hand up? Did you have a?
No.
Change your mind? Okay. Was there another hand? Yeah. Uh-huh.
It was you associate yellow light with nighttime.
Right. Mhm.
So your body doesn't produce the correct neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't. You're right. And the part of the brain you're talking about doesn't recognize that.
Yeah.
It's recognizing it as like right.
Because your circadian rhythms are something that super chiasmatic, the SCN they call it, it detects those circadian rhythms, and so it can throw them off pretty intensely. Just like if you have too much light or not enough light constantly, like people who live in places where it's dark all the time or light all the time, it makes it hard for them to sleep normally because it disrupts your sleep cycle. So high blood pressure is another one, coronary heart disease, right? There's a lot of correlates to stress with all of these. So these are very common things that a lot of people struggle with: stomach aches, headaches, and so on, related to stress. So kind of on a lesser level than what we've been talking about, but still very relevant. There's a lot of contributors to these. A very famous study looking at something called type A or type B personality. So it was an incredibly flawed study. It was done quite a few years ago, and it was funded heavily by a tobacco company. And so it's kind of, in a lot of ways, been dismissed, but there were a few nuggets that came out of it. This idea that your personality can affect your propensity towards stress and the effects it can take on your body. So some people who are considered like more type A, people who are more competitive and impatient, ambitious, right, kind of hard driven, always moving on the go, tend to be more prone towards stress-related issues than people who are more mellow and relaxed, less concerned about time. It's like the person who's like, I got to conquer the mountain as fast as possible because it's here, would be type A, versus I'm just going to hang out underneath the mountain because it's not going anywhere, it would be type B. Now, there's a lot more than type A and B, and almost nobody is exclusively one or the other. But the takeaway is that your personality style can impact your likelihood of developing different levels of stress and different psychophysiological illnesses. So your personality matters. Everybody has a different tendency in terms of like how much stress they can handle, right? And how that affects their body. Some people internalize stress more and have more stomach and like headache kind of related issues. And people can externalize it and have more mood related stuff instead. So it can kind of go either way. When we get stressed heavily, we tend to get sick as well. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Sure.
If it's kind of invalid, why do they still group personality disorders by like type B, like cluster B?
Yeah.
Is the clusters different? Or
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, they just divided them into like A, B, C. No,
Okay.
no. And there's actually like a type A, B, C, D,
Yeah.
E, and it's not the best idea. It's very oversimplified. But it was this study that was done that was like received massive attention because it was such a big study. And they were looking at the effect of stress and personality on like heart health specifically. And what they found is that people who are more like type A were more prone to heart attacks. But it was, again, it was funded by like tobacco companies that had an agenda. And so that kind of overrides what they found. But yeah, the fact that it's just like clusters A, B, and C, not related. Confusing, but not related. So psychoneuroimmunology is another branch, long word, right? Psychoneuroimmunology, looking at the connection between stress and the immune system. When we are stressed, we're more likely to get sick. Finals week, it's like everybody is coughing and sniffling. Right around the holidays, people are coughing and sniffling more. We tend to get sick when we're stressed out. And the reason for that is our immune system doesn't have all of the energy and functioning that it normally would because stress affects it. Stress impairs our nervous system, or I'm sorry, our immune system by taking that energy away. And so what happens is it doesn't have as much energy to fight off like bacteria and viruses. So diseases can progress faster and people can be more vulnerable to illness. Even illnesses that maybe lie dormant in your system. And then when you're stressed, they come forward. Very, very common to get sick when we're stressed out. Yeah. Reduces the size of your, I don't know if it reduces the size as much as it affects the functioning, right? So stress impairs the ability of the body just to work properly because it's causing a lot of like toll on your system. But think about all the systems it affects when you're stressed out. And so it's more that it impairs it rather than adjusting the size, I believe. One last thing here, some treatments and some things that we can do. There's a whole branch called behavioral medicine that looks at treating and intervening for some of these things that we're talking about here, much more so for like the psychophysiological ones than the ones we talked about at the beginning of the chapter. But there's a lot of things that we can do to help with like stress related issues. And the self-care activity that I gave you as like extra credit is a very commonly referenced thing, along with mindfulness training. Those are like really big things in the field of psychology right now, being mindful. And if you're on our Canvas website, if I go back there for a moment, the health center made a video for me on mindfulness training. If you're interested, you don't have to watch it. It's just for fun. But I posted it right here. They made a video on mindfulness and gave you a bunch of activities and ideas and examples. So if you're interested, it is right here on Canvas underneath that library video that I asked you to watch. But mindfulness is something that's gaining a lot of popularity. It's been around a long time, but it's something that's very popular for this. Relaxation training, finding ways to calm down, taking deep breaths, maybe visualizations are really common. Meditation, hypnosis. There's something called biofeedback, which is really interesting. They hook up all these little instruments all over your body and measure where you're holding muscle tension. Oftentimes we don't realize how much we hold tension in parts of our body until somebody calls attention to it. And so putting little instruments all over like your face and your neck and your hands and seeing how much tension you have and then learning ways to let some of that go. Also, there's a lot of wonderful apps. I don't know if any of you have used the Calm app. I love this app because it has all these beautiful like soundscapes in the background. You can just put on like nature sounds. It has sleep stories and all sorts of like relaxation based exercises. And then there's one called Headspace, which is a little more like cognitive behavioral. but a similar idea. Did you have a,
Children,
yeah,
that is the best way to get them to bed. They have great stories, and so you can
they
just, like,
do.
kids love the idea of like being on a tablet, so it's like you can set a sleep timer,
Yeah.
and then they don't even have to touch it, so it's like they get excited that they get their tablet time, but they're really just.
Mm-hmm.
So you think of little like playlists.
Yeah, but yeah, it is. It's great, right? For kids, for adults, what they have are like sleep stories and music, and there's all these different resources on there. It's a great source of like finding ways to calm down. It's really actually a really cool app, and you can use a lot of it for free, or you can purchase it and then you have access to everything. But there's a lot of different things that we can do to help us calm down. I kind of became a big fan of like guided visualizations a few years ago as a way to calm down. And I told you, I know a lot about like things like EMDR and things like that. As part of EMDR, they oftentimes have you create like a calm place, a place that you can close your eyes and visualize when you're stressed out. And so like mine was a beach or a forest. And so whenever I'm stressed, I try and close my eyes, picture walking on this beach it's up in Humboldt. It's like an actual beach that I've been to. And those little activities can help you to calm down, right? And reduce your stress in some way. I have a guided relaxation. I don't know would you be interested in doing one? I had one yes. That's all I needed. One yes. There is. I heard a sure. One nod and a sure. Okay. So it's about 9 minutes long, but this is my favorite of all of them. Not to set the bar too high. I should have said I'd like this one's okay, right? But I like this one a lot. It's a forest walk. So it's like a guided relaxation exercise through a forest. There's nothing on the screen. It's just audio. But I'll turn off the lights and try and get comfortable. I know these seats aren't super comfortable and you're surrounded by people you don't know well. So that's some barriers to relaxing, but try and get as comfortable as you can. I'll play it for you. Try not to fall asleep, right? Get relaxed, but not that relaxed, right? No, stay with me. But I'll play this for you. Notice how you feel right now. And hopefully you feel a little bit calmer or more peaceful afterward. Here we go. And again, there's nothing to up here, just audio.
Guided imagery is a powerful relaxation technique. In this exercise, you will be guided into a beautiful, tranquil forest. As your imagination is guided through various sensory suggestions, your body and mind will respond as though what you are imagining is real. So if you are feeling tense or stressed, this will help shift your mood to one of peace and relaxation. So begin by finding a comfortable place to relax and make sure you're warm. Placing yourself into a nice, comfortable position, either sitting or lying down on a bed, couch, or the floor. And when you're ready, close your eyes. Begin by taking a nice slow deep breath deep into the belly. Hold the breath for a brief moment and release the breath. Once again, nice deep breath in. Hold. And now release. As you release the breath, let go of any tension, surrendering the weight of your body onto the surface that you're lying on. One last time, deep breath in, hold, and now exhale. Feel yourself beginning to relax and let go. Now imagine you're walking along a path in a beautiful secluded forest on a bright, sunny autumn morning. The path is soft underneath your shoes. You can hear each of your footsteps against the forest floor, where there are fallen leaves, pine needles, twigs, and moss. As you walk along the path, you can feel a gentle, cool breeze caressing your cheeks. You hear the birds singing and the leaves of the trees as they rustle in the wind. As you continue to walk, you feel relaxed and your mind clears more and more with each step you take. The fresh air is revitalizing as you take a nice deep breath in and as you continue to walk through the forest. You notice the tall trees around you. The red and golden leaves look magnificent, and you stop for a moment to take in this beautiful scenery around you. You notice a red leaf falling from a tree as it dances and twirls in the air before slowly fluttering down to rest along with the others. In the distance, you hear the babbling of a stream. As you look ahead, you notice the sun dappling through the trees, and you see the sun reflection upon the gurgling stream that runs along the edge of the forest. You continue to tread carefully into the forest, over the crackling red and golden leaves, and the broken twigs and pine cones that are scattered across the ground. It is very peaceful here, and the deeper you venture into the forest, the deeper into relaxation you fall, and you're filled with a deep sense of peace and tranquility. You pause a while and rest against an old oak tree, and you feel the rough bark of the tree against your fingers. You look down and you notice a patch of soft green moss that covers a smooth, large rock, and its lushness invites you to sit down for a while. The tree welcomes you to lean against its bark so that you feel comfortable. While sitting quietly beneath this oak tree, you enjoy the peace and stillness. You feel nourished by the warmth of the sun on your body, and you feel a deep connection to all that is around you. You feel the warmth of the sun soothing and relaxing your head, your back, your shoulders, arms, and legs. Your whole body is peaceful and relaxed. Take a few moments and enjoy this deep sense of peace and relaxation. Now bring your awareness back to where you're sitting beneath the oak tree and see yourself slowly standing up. You brush off any leaves or moss that may be on your clothes. You take a final look at the beautiful scenery around you. And when you're ready, follow the trail back as you proceed to leave the forest. Now bring your awareness back to the room. Become aware of the surface beneath you. Notice the sounds in the room. Feel yourself awaken. And when you're ready, open your eyes, feeling refreshed, alert, relaxed.
All right, so I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna turn the lights on, so watch here. Okay. So I know kind of long, right? Hopefully you're not too sleepy, but I think it's a really nice, like that would be an example, like a relaxation training or a guided visualization. And obviously this isn't the easiest environment, right? Like there were people coming in and out, which like makes it hard to stay focused. If you don't do these a lot, you probably had a lot of like things interrupt your thoughts, right? Like I had a moment where I was like, I want to eat this donut that you brought me, right? Like I started thinking about it because it was right in front of me. Right? And then I'm like, wait, go back to the forest, right? I was like, I could have the donut in the forest, right? Like, so if you don't do these a lot, sometimes it can be hard to focus, but the more you do them, the better you get at them. And the idea is that it calms you down. If you can calm the mind, you calm the body. If you calm the body, you calm the mind, right? I noticed in the beginning, like I didn't realize I was doing it, but I was literally like this, like my fists were like this. And like a minute in, I was like, oh, wait, stop, right? Like, let it go, right? We hold that muscle tension, sometimes almost mindlessly. And so doing little things like this, I think are great. I have a couple of them linked on images on here, a couple other ones that I found. If you have a really cool like guided relaxation that you do, send it to me. I'll definitely give it a shot. Just like that one's probably my favorite one, just because it's a forest. So I love that. But there are tons of these online. You can find them everywhere. There's a bunch of them on these apps as well. But the whole idea is that it's calming you down, right? And when you calm yourself down, you reduce your stress and you tend to feel a little better. It reduces your likelihood of getting some of those psychosomatic or psychophysiological illnesses. And hopefully you're not too sleepy, right? Like I'm ready for a nap. It doesn't help that it's all rainy outside. Like let's go take naps, right? That sounds like a good thing. That's the last slide for this chapter. Are there any other like thoughts or comments, questions, stories, anything else with these disorders in this chapter before we move to the next one? All right, so we will say goodbye to chapter 8, and our next topic is looking at mood disorders, which we'll kind of get started on today, and then obviously we'll spend more time on later. And so for the next couple of classes, we'll look at mood. And then we will have a guest speaker coming in on the 8th of March to talk about suicide prevention, right? Which is kind of the next chapter after this. There tends to be a strong correlation between mood struggles and suicidality. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But for now, chapter 6, these are the second most common group of disorders, right? So anxiety disorders are the most common. Mood is the second. A lot of people struggle with mood-related issues or struggles, disorders. We'll talk about depression and mania, and then when they combine together to get bipolar disorder, and then some of the causes and treatments. So if we look at mood exists on a spectrum, right? And we can think about it as almost like two poles or two ends. If we have the low pole of mood and the high. And the high end, like the extreme high of mood, would be mania. And the extreme low would be depression. Now, most of us spend our time like in here. Kind of like normal, or we could say typical mood. Right? If we have a good day, we're kind of a little bit higher. A bad day, we're a little bit lower. But we go back and forth kind of within like a typical range of emotion. Some people stay way down here for way longer than they would like to, and they really struggle with low mood. And other people stay way up here and struggle with high mood, or you can have both, which we call bipolar disorder. It used to be called manic depression, which makes sense, right? Mania and depression, but there's actually more than one type of mania, which we'll talk about probably next time. And so we call this bipolar disorder. People have both poles of mood with normal mood in the middle, right? And so you can have one or the other or both. It's pretty rare that people just have mania, right? So typically if somebody has depression, they can have that by itself, or they can have a manic episode, in which case they then now have bipolar disorder. So depression, I think, is something that people are more familiar with. Like depression is pretty common. A lot of people struggle with depression. It's a very low, sad state. You have significant levels of sadness, low energy, low self-worth, a lot of guilt. You don't enjoy the things you used to enjoy. It's a very low state of mood. It's more than just being sad, right? It's much more severe than that. I went to a conference, this was years and years and years ago, and the guy described depression as combining the anguish of grief with the sluggishness of jet lag. And I thought that was a kind of a cool description, because you're so emotionally and physically wiped out. This can be a very difficult state. And mania, on the other end, can also be difficult and get people in a lot of trouble. When people are manic, they're very up, they're very agitated. They oftentimes engage in reckless, impulsive behavior, and can get themselves into a little bit of trouble with some of that grandiose thinking that can come with that state. So we can have one or the other or both, but these are the two kind of extremes of mood. And with these, what we see is that they last longer than typical mood, or they're maybe more extreme and intense than you would expect. How many of you, just by show of hands, know someone with a mood disorder, whether it's depression or bipolar? A lot of you, again, very, very common, unfortunately, and even more so common right now. A lot of people struggling with depression. So let's look at the low end of mood first. Unipolar depression. So bipolar means that you have both ends. Unipolar means you just have one, right? So if somebody has unipolar or major depression, then they have depression without any history of mania. So they just have depression, no mania. Now, this could change at any time. You could have somebody who has only depression for years. If they have a manic episode, now they would all of a sudden have bipolar disorder. But for the purposes of our discussion, we're focusing on someone who only has the low and they're struggling with depression. Use this. So in order to be diagnosed with major depression, you have to have a major depressive episode. Right. And to have an episode, you need 5 or more symptoms that last for a minimum of 2 weeks. Minimum of 2 weeks. Now, for some people, this can last months, right? But it has to at least be 2 weeks, more often than not, right? So more days than not, more often than not, over a course of 2 weeks, you have 5 or more symptoms. So for a major depressive episode. So in order to have unipolar major depression, you have to have a major depressive episode. And the reason they separate it is because people can have a major depressive episode. They could also have a manic episode. So having different episodes like that allows us to specify the disorder. Mhm. So some of the symptoms, weight loss or weight gain. Sometimes when people are depressed, they don't care enough to eat and they lose weight. Other people, they try and eat their sorrows and they gain weight, right? So it can go either way, that you can lose weight or gain weight depending on the person. You have a diminished interest. So we'll say a reduced interest in pleasurable activities. So things that you used to enjoy bring you less joy, right? So you always loved hanging out with friends and you just can't seem to enjoy doing that. You don't really have the motivation to go do it. You've always enjoyed playing your guitar and you just don't have the drive or care to do it. It doesn't bring you joy anymore, right? So there's a reduced interest in things that you used to enjoy. And it tends to kind of fuel itself. You start avoiding these things, which causes more depression. And so it can be kind of a self-fulfilling cycle. You get insomnia or hypersomnia. Insomnia, we just talked about, right? It's your difficulty staying asleep or falling asleep. Hypersomnia is when you sleep all the time. So this is somebody who doesn't want to get out of bed. They're sleeping way too many hours in a day, which can actually make you even more tired. Like if you sleep beyond your normal sleep cycle, you tend to be more tired than if you were to wake up. So hypersomnia is sleeping all the time. Insomnia is difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. It can go either way. A few other ones, you have a fatigue. You're tired, you have a loss of energy. You're wiped out. A lot of feelings of worthlessness or guilt. Low self-esteem, you feel like you're worthless, right? I'm not worthwhile. You don't feel good about yourself. You might feel a lot of guilt about the things you're not doing or the things that you've stopped doing. You have a reduced ability to think, concentrate. It's almost like a mental fog, right? It can be hard to remember things. It can be hard to think clearly, hard to make decisions. Sometimes people, when they're depressed, they literally cannot make a tiny decision because it's just too much, right? Or you go to take an exam and you're so like mentally foggy that you can't remember anything, right? So it reduces your ability to think clearly, to concentrate, to make decisions. There's a lot of thoughts of death and suicide. Very strong correlations between depression and suicidality, right? The number one reason is people feel hopeless, like it's never going to stop, it's never going to get better. And then they start considering things like suicide, right? And we'll talk a lot about that in like a week or two. It's a very permanent solution to what's often a temporary problem. Depression might feel like it will never end, but for most people, they come out of this, right? It could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months, but it does tend to be something that subsides at some point. And there are lots of treatment options that we'll talk about as well. And then one other one that's not very common, but it can happen, is called psychomotor agitation. You see this more with mania, but it can sometimes happen with this as well, with depression, where people have these like unintentional, purposeless motions that they do. It might be like wringing your hands over and over and over again, or like pulling on like part of your face or your hair or your collar. It could be like just like a mindless, you put a shirt on and take it on and off over and over again, right? They're typically like mindless behaviors that you might engage in When people have mania, it might be like tapping or like moving really quickly. These tend to be like slower because it's, we're talking about depression, but it's a repetitive, like mindless behavior. And so you can see 5 or more of these. And sometimes they show up and then they go away. You might have some of these one time you're depressed and different ones the next time. But it is very much like a mental fog where you're low, and it can be very hard to come out of these cycles, very hard to get yourself out of a depression. So people can have a major depressive episode, which means that they have unipolar depression. Or there's one called persistent depressive disorder, used to be called dysthymic disorder. Dysthymia is Greek for melancholy, right? So this is somebody who's like chronically sad in a low grade kind of way. So major depression, these are very intense, like 2 weeks or more. Persistent depressive disorder is all of this, but on a lesser level over the course of 2 years or more. So it's somebody who's like constantly low grade level of depression over the course of like at least 2 years. It's not as common. What's much more common is a major depressive episode, which would qualify you for a diagnosis of major depression. I have an example of this for you. I've been booed for it before, but I'm going to play it anyway. Yeah. Yeah, that definitely could be. So with bipolar disorder, people might have a manic episode, and then they could have months of normal, like typical mood, and then a depressed episode, or it could be one followed directly by the other. But that's very typical of bipolar. You have the extremes of the up and the down. No. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Mainly the mom, she had blood disorder, and she had to go in and out of the show. And at one point, she would have her really, really low, and she would move out of her underneath the stairs. That's the they're not next to that. She would move for 2 or 3 weeks, and then harmed herself, unfortunately. And they sent her to the hospital, but the hospital, like, she comes in all this time like this. So they technically never diagnosed her with anything because they were also scared of the patient.
Yeah.
And I come to find out it was actually killing her.
Interesting.
But that's what I was on with the labor.
Yeah.
I looked at her and she actually she went looked at her like a kindergartner and it's all fine.
Yeah. And it can be tricky, and we'll talk about this more when we get to bipolar disorder. It can feel like 2 different people, right? Like you have somebody who's like, go, let's do everything. I'm not going to sleep. I have a million things I want to do. And then they cycle to depression, and I'm never going to get out of bed. I'm worthless. I don't want to do anything. It's one of the more difficult like disorders to navigate, especially for friends and family, because sometimes you don't know which person you're going to get that day. And that can make it a little hard as well. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's just long term. And so sometimes that happens. I mean, people can suffer from depression for years. It's a minimum of 2 weeks. And some people only have it for like a couple of weeks. Others, it might be months to years. And that could be their like primary thing that they struggle with. And so, yeah, it's a guideline of at least 2 weeks, but it can be much, much longer. And I'm sure several of you like know people who maybe have had depression for months or years. It can last a long time, and it can be circumstantial or it can be biological, which we'll talk about both as well. Yeah.
13 years old, mom took me to the psychiatrist, and she like kept pushing them to be like, oh, she has bipolar, oh, she has mania, oh, she's like, but she'll go really low. And then so they put me on a bipolar medication and ended up being like really angry all the time.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing,
Yeah.
I don't like this. So I took myself off of it. And at 18, I went to a doctor, and he was like, I don't see how you have bipolar. He's like, you have major depressive disorder. I'm like, I'm 25 years old, so I've been diagnosed for like quite a few years, but I remember like feeling so angry all the time on like patients. I took myself off of it. I was just like, that's BS.
And that can happen, right? And I'll play you a commercial next time, but you can hear, if you ever listen to the side effects on a commercial, sometimes it can make the depression or the mania worse when you take a medication. especially when you're younger. So we generally try not to put teenagers on medication because they don't tend to do as well with it because the brain isn't fully developed. And so you respond very negatively, very common for teenagers to get worse on antidepressants or make it harder to find the right one. And so those are very common issues. And sometimes it can cause anger, especially the mood stabilizing drugs like lithium and a few others. They can cause side effects of being angry or feeling numb, almost like it takes everything and like puts it in the middle and you feel very flat.
Yeah, and then they ended up putting me on Prozac at 18.
Yeah.
Like I got better and they're like, you
Yeah.
know, they knew how that manic stage where it's like
Yeah.
super happy or like you're super like compulsive on everything, you just get really sad. So, yeah.
It's a lot of trial and error. And then when you get the right diagnosis, then you know what to treat, right? Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, so BPD, borderline personality disorder, and bipolar disorder are very commonly confused. They are very similar in some ways. And we'll talk about both of them, or we'll talk about bipolar next time. But borderline personality disorder is a personality disorder. So it tends to be much more global and long lasting versus bipolar. People go through these cycles of like being up and down. But they're very commonly confused because they both have like reckless, impulsive things as part of it. They both have mood disturbances as part of it. Borderline is more severe than bipolar, but they can sometimes occur together. Sometimes people are diagnosed with both because you can't tell which one it is. That happens sometimes as well. Yeah.
It's like the crossover between like BPD and like trauma.
Yeah.
Like the ways that like bipolar doesn't have the same.
Yeah.
Like bipolar is more biologically,
Mhm.
whereas they're not quite sure with BPD yet.
Right.
It's more likely that you have BPD if you have a parent with BPD.
Mhm.
They don't want like, nurture nature. So it's just really interesting to look at the two different like bipolar. and
Yeah.
BPD and then the trauma and stress.
Yeah, and that's it's a very like big thing right now. So we talked about complex PTSD, and then there's something called developmental trauma disorder. And what we're seeing is that a lot of people who've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder actually probably have complex trauma or developmental trauma. It's very rooted in childhood issues, especially like childhood abandonment of some kind. And so what you see is that a lot of people are diagnosed with borderline when it might just be that they had trauma that they experienced, and that manifests very similarly. And it doesn't tend to be the case with bipolar disorder that people had trauma, but it is the case with borderline. Really interesting. That's a big wave right now of looking at re-examining borderline personality disorder to see if it actually fits as many people as we think it does. And the answer is usually no, right? That it might be more of a trauma-based disorder than anything else. All right, so you dodged your like controversial clip for today, but I'm going to play it for you next time. So what we'll do when I see you I won't see you Wednesday because it's a campus flex day. So you enjoy your time. I'll be learning about distance education with no cookies. Go back for me. So please try and watch that library video that's on there. And when I see you on Monday, we'll keep going with this. We'll talk about the video and the part of the paper. So I will see you next week.
Wait, we got watch the video online?
Yeah, it's the one, the library video I showed you on Canvas. Yeah. Bye. Take